to do
Okay.
pre-need planning?
Yeah,
I mean,
to
you
be
have to
put-
have a 50,000.
No, you do, not us.
Oh, okay.
In North Carolina, to kind of have the cemetery, you have to be able to do pre-need, to take money in advance.
I see. You have to have a,
You have to kind of
Be
do
bonded.
this $50,000 bond.
okay.
Now, sometimes if you can tie this to a religious institution, there are some ways of getting around that. But those are the sort of things where we can really help
Right.
you kind of get through
Good.
that.
Good.
But
All right, hold on. I'm going
Sorry.
to go back here. Now, here's one of my questions, or one of somebody's questions. Do they come get you?
who?
Do you?
The police?
No.
The undertakers?
Does Ramsey Creek provide a transport service
No,
where
we-
you go and pick up bodies
No,
and bring them to you?
we do not do that at the moment. Now, one of the things I would like to say is, if you can, and there's a group in Greensboro called Crossings, who have done incredible work with home funerals. So
Yep.
there is already a big
Yeah,
thing
we-
up there for the home funerals. All right.
I asked that question only because somebody asked me to ask it, because I was pretty sure the answer was going to be no.
Right.
All right, let me ask you this. What about crossing state lines, bringing bodies
No
across
problem
state lines
whatsoever.
without embalming?
No problem. It's done. I mean, this is one of the big kind of.
Good.
This is one of the things
Myths.
that it is an absolute myth. And a lot of times, to tell you the truth, the funeral homes themselves don't even know the law. And you know,
Believe me, yes.
and so you've just really got to keep pushing. But we've had people brought to us from all over the country on aeroplanes, in cars. And now, what I will say is, there's a lot of times, if people take responsibility for their own dead, okay, they can do anything they want. You know, they can, and Crossings can help people with that, with getting the transit permits. But some states are really weird, like New Jersey or New York, I think. That's where you can't. It's somehow, if the funeral home gets involved, they can't do it or something. I don't know. It's one
Yeah.
of these it's one of these things that makes no sense. But, you know, when it all comes down to it, just say you're Jewish, and, you know, and then you're exempt from all of those things. It's a religious exemption. So tell a little white lie
Jewish.
and say you're Jewish, and you've got no problem.
How far in advance do you have to reserve a spot?
Well, that's up to people, you know. Obviously, I mean, part of the thing with doing pre-need is so that people have the convenience of being able to have been here, picked out their spot, reserved it, paid for it, have all the paperwork for that. But sometimes people don't want to do that. So in that way, I tell them to write a directive about what they want, inform their family, give them all the numbers, start a savings account to cover the costs, you know, an interest-bearing savings account for, you know, your death fund and stuff. And, you know, so that when the death occurs, they know who to call and what to do. So it usually takes us about, you know, I would say all in all, if you say a day to prepare the grave. You know, so, and a lot of times people aren't, in most situations, people aren't ready to do a burial, you know, within 24 hours anyway. They're waiting for family and for other things, except in the case of hospice, where if, for example, when we work with hospice families, we ask them to keep in contact with us. So if we know that things are turning south and it looks like the end is near, if they've been out and picked a place out already, then we can start and prepare the grave
So you
and
have
do all of that.
advance notice.
And we have had situations where, in hospice situations, where the family and everybody's prepared. And, you know, like if they've died at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, we can have the burial at the end of that day.
So from 4
So,
o'clock in the morning
morning.
to 4 o'clock, so 12 hours later, you
Yep.
could theoretically, with that kind of notice.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So, you know, so it is possible to, you know, to do that. But a lot of times, you know, it just depends. So some people just do the directive and, you know, kind of do it at need, at the time of need. And you know, there are some people who don't really like to talk about it, think about it. They know that's what they want, but they don't want to commit to it just then. And then there's other people who are just like really, no, want it done, everything done in place, ready to go.
One of the things that I did, because I was the one who took the green burial idea towards the open space program
Right.
through a fellow that I know, and I asked him to bring it up and to say that I was willing to pay $5,000 to the county open space program.
Yes.
But I haven't done all the paperwork yet. Neither have they. So we'll see what happens with that. Let me ask you this. Is there a down payment? Do you require payment in full? How does that work?
I usually give people to make they can pay in full,
No
or
problem.
no problem paying in full.
Is there a discount?
Um,
No, not really.
no.
Okay.
But then I let people do 2 years with no interest.
Okay.
So
So a
that
down
comes out to,
payment with 2 years to pay off.
not a down payment, just straight paying
Oh, okay.
over 2 years
Okay.
with no down payment. So
Okay,
it's like
okay.
$105 a month, which is a bit more palatable, for people.
You are so nice. Y'all just, you've thought about so many nice ways to make this work for people.
Well, what we're looking at as well is the long-term, the long-term connection people have with the land. So, I mean, and especially if they're here, I mean, and they live close by, part of it is being able to come and walk, bring your dogs, enjoy the trails,
Yeah. Love the land.
love the land.
Love the land. Yeah.
And that sort of thing. So, and for a lot of people, you've got kids going to college and car payments and mortgages and all of that kind of stuff. So, and frankly, I guess it's a bit selfish in one way. I mean, if it's something to encourage them to kind of do it because it's lower price, and also we have had it where people, for one reason or another, have moved further away, or that yes.
Zoe, come here, girl. Come here, girl. Come on. Come back up here.
Have moved or have changed their mind and stuff. I just give them a refund for what they paid. A lot of cemeteries won't do that. I mean, you've got to go through this whole big rigmarole.
Well, you're not doing this to make money. You're doing this to
Right.
preserve the land and
Well, it would be
provide a
nice to
gathering
it would be
place.
nice to make enough money to cover. It's nice to make enough money to cover salaries.
Sure.
You have to have somebody there. Part of the reason why this works is because when people come here, and at the other places that are doing well, is they have paid staff who love this thing and are very passionate and about it, and people feed into that passion and that commitment.
Positive energy.
The positive energy and to the commitment.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important. But I was thinking if there was anything else.
Let me ask
Okay,
two
yes.
more questions, and then I'm done with this. What is the process for picking a site?
Well, basically, we have a trail system, and we'll kind of go through that. We have the fixed survey marker points, where we measure the grave. Those are surveyed in. We measure the graves in relation to those fixed survey marker points. Then that is actually, we developed an algorithm that goes into a GIS system. So we have a GIS map, but we also use GPS. But if you are under a big canopy, I mean, the GPS piece of equipment that we have costs about $15,000, and stuff. But even then, in the case of, dense canopy, you're not getting the total accuracy that you would want. So we have to kind of, a lot of times in the late fall and winter and early spring, we come back and kind of look at stuff like that. Obviously, it's not a problem when somebody's already buried there. But in the case of somebody buying a place in advance, it's obviously very important that you know where that space is, so you don't resell it or forget where it went or whatever.
Yeah. Huh. What about someone coming and just walking around?
Yeah,
and
that's
saying,
what happens. Yeah, that's what happens is people just walk and they say,
Yeah.
"I like that site," and I say, "You can have it," or "No, it's already taken."
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so that's
I try to keep it as simple as possible. We started out actually with a system where we had all these places picked out before. The problem is finding a way to kind of identify them when leaves are falling on them all the time, and and I tried, and I'd be damned if I could find any of those things that were already there. So
It's
I just
interesting
don't,
how hard it can be to find something in the woods.
yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
We're not trained to do it. We don't look at the
No.
information that's really there.
No, and some trees, things change,
Yeah,
things die.
yeah.
You've got this changing season, so if you looked at it in one season, it might look completely different in another. So,
One final question on my list.
okay.
Actually, I got two. Is there a gathering place for services? And I think the answer is yes, there's the chapel.
There's the chapel, and sometimes if people have a big, and it depends on, I guess, on the size of the space that you have. We have had funerals with nobody, where nobody has shown up, and
Really?
the family's been way out west, and we bury the person and they come later. And then we've had burials where there are 250 people. But obviously, we are a small space, and so you have to think about, parking and visitor impact and all of that.
Yeah.
But, the church holds about 50 people seated, and then we can put more in the back there. But sometimes, in the case of Catholics, if they have a funeral mass or something, sometimes they will have that at their church. And then come on afterwards just for the burial. But, it's a graveside thing, it depends on the amount of people.
But most
in
of
there.
the services are just at the gravesite.
Yeah, we do have a lot of times people, though, who come and use the church and set the casket up there, all the remains, and people kind of meet and greet there for a while or use it for afterwards. So it just depends, but some people are just at the gravesite,
Let me ask you one final sort of overarching question. What makes a green burial here a green burial? What's allowed, what's not
No
allowed?
embalming,
No embalming.
no vault.
No vault.
Biodegradable, a plain wooden casket, no lacquer or, stuff like that. We do, if people make their own and they have some nails in them or something, or screws, we allow that. But it's really not the big steel metal caskets,
Cardboard caskets.
Cardboard caskets, shrouds,
Shrouds.
just pieces of material.
Pure naked.
Pure naked. People,
Favorite suit.
favorite suit,
Oh, cool.
overalls,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Now with the naked burials, we have to, obviously that's a sensitivity issue. So
One would hope.
and so that, but there was one gentleman in one place, and he really insisted on being buried naked. And so what they did was, they had like the small, more intimate family who really were for this. They kind of did the lowering and all of that, whilst the other people were further away. And then when it had been covered
Nice,
so much,
yeah.
they couldn't come and be part of that. So,
Good.
so we try to accommodate people's
Do you take
individual.
cremains?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And
sorry.
the reason we take cremated remains is, although cremation, it's amazing how many people change their minds. They come to us because they think that cremation was the greenest way, and actually they say, this is so wonderful, this is what I wanted to begin with, but didn't think that it was possible, so that's why I chose cremation. So actually, they changed their mind, but there are some people who just, for whatever reason, it's ingrained in them now.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is that, we're trying to do this, of course, the bigger purpose is to make money to use for future land protection, preservation, conservation. If we turned that, and there's so many people who want cremation, if we turned that away, we would be losing a huge chunk of money that could be going for the environment.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like balance, it's all about a question of balance, really. So, and then in the same time, if some people then change their mind from cremation to, I think we've done that service, but we haven't alienated that group too. So.
Do you have time to take us on a walk?
Absolutely, I would love to go for a walk.
Lovely.
Now, and